Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a true crime story that really sent shockwaves across India. It's a saga that's as compelling as it is, well, tragic. We're diving deep into the life and horrifying end of Shakereh Khaleeli. She was an Indian real estate developer, a philanthropist, and her story, even decades later, it still resonates. Our source for this deep dive today is a pretty comprehensive Wikipedia entry. It gives us a concise but thorough look at this really chilling case. Our mission really is to pull out the most pivotal moments, the truly unsettling details, and help you make sense of what is a complex and profoundly emotional story. So it makes you wonder what happens when immense wealth and sort of high societal standing collide with betrayal, and betrayal of the most intimate kind. To really get a handle on the tragedy, I think we first need to appreciate Shakereh Khaleeli's beginnings, which were, well, quite extraordinary. She was born Shakereh Namazi in Madras, that's Chennai now, back in 1947. She came from an Indian Persian Muslim family with incredibly deep roots and significant influence stretching even to Singapore.
Oh, absolutely. Those roots were incredibly profound. Her mother, Gauhar Taj Begum Namazi, was the youngest daughter of Sir Mirza Ismail. And, for anyone unfamiliar, Sir Mirza Ismail was a huge figure in Indian history. He served as the Diwan, which is essentially the prime minister for three major princely states, Mysore, Jaipur, and Hyderabad. That's significant. And Gauhar Taj herself, she was a well-known socialite and philanthropist over in Singapore, real involved in charity work.
Right, and the family's influence, it just kept expanding. Her paternal grandfather, Muhammad Namazi, he was a trader. His business interests were like all over the place: Middle East, Southeast Asia, Southern India. Then you have her father, Ghulam Hussain Namazi. He did something quite remarkable, opened Singapore's very first cinema, the Capitol Theatre, which is iconic. And he was also deeply involved in the family's huge real estate holdings and, interestingly, equestrian pursuits. Apparently, their horses won some prestigious trophies.
So it's really clear this wasn't just wealth, it was significant social standing, historical legacy.
Exactly. That kind of background, it sets a pretty unique stage for someone's life, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're born into that level of privilege and history, it comes with, well, both huge opportunities and certain expectations, right? And Shakereh's early life, it definitely reflected that. She married very young, just 18, back in 1965, to her first cousin, Akbar Mirza Khaleeli. He was described as this outstanding sportsman and scholar. Actually, Ramesh Krishnan apparently called him the best tennis player in South India.
Wow.
Yeah, before he joined the very prestigious Indian Foreign Service.
So their life together, for many years anyway, was really the picture of a diplomatic couple. Akbar served in all these different international posts: Delhi, Baghdad, Paris, Amman, eventually becoming the Indian ambassador to Iran, then Italy, and High Commissioner to Australia.
And Shakereh was with him for most of that time, living this glamorous diplomatic life abroad. But interestingly, while Akbar was posted in Iran, Shakereh started to sort of forge her own path, separate from the diplomatic wife role.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, she moved to Bangalore, and she started getting really actively involved in real estate development. She's actually following a family tradition. Her great-grandfather, Aga Ali Asker, was known for his buildings there.
I see.
So she built a family home first on Sankey Road, then another one for her mother. And she went on to redevelop other family properties too. And apparently, this even included evicting some tenants, which shows a certain, business sharpness.
Yeah, it sounds like she wasn't just sort of managing inherited money. She was actively building something herself. It's an interesting shift, isn't it, from diplomatic spouse to developer?
It really is. Almost like reclaiming her own agency, perhaps.
Maybe. And amidst all this, they had 4 daughters: Zibunda, Saba, Rahan, and Begum Esmath. But that marriage, despite, the outward glamour and the strong family ties, it eventually ended. They divorced in 1984.
And this is where the story takes a really astonishing and deeply controversial turn.
Right, because just 2 years before the divorce, back in 1982, Shakereh and Akbar had met this man in Bangalore, Murali Manohar Mishra.
The man who would later rename himself Swami Shradhananda.
And his entry into her life it sent shockwaves, didn't it?
Yeah.
Through her family, her social circle, everything.
Oh, absolutely. Because only 6 months after her divorce, this is April 1986, Shakereh made this, extraordinary decision. She completely shunned her family, all the social norms, to marry Shradhananda.
Just 6 months later, wow.
Yeah, it was immediate, deeply polarizing, raised a lot of eyebrows.
And the change in her life was instant and pretty drastic. She almost immediately gave him access to her money, her property, which is quite a step.
A huge step. And then reports started surfacing about quarrels, specifically quarrels over Shakereh's relationship with her own daughters. It really seems like this new marriage just drove this wedge, this almost irreparable rift, into her personal life.
And tragically, that rift, combined with, it seems, Shradhananda's increasing control, just set the stage for the horror that followed.
Exactly. Because in 1991, Shakereh's second daughter, Saba, she realized she couldn't get in touch with her mother, couldn't locate her at all. And despite asking Shradhananda again and again, desperately trying to find out where Shakereh was, he just kept, avoiding the question, giving non-answers.
That must have been terrifying for the daughter, that silence.
Chilling. It grew louder every day, didn't it? Turning concern into real alarm.
But Saba didn't give up. Her persistence is actually quite remarkable. It shows, a daughter's love. In 1992, she did something decisive. She filed for habeas corpus at the Ashok Nagar police station in Bangalore.
Right, which is basically a legal demand for the authorities to produce a person, to determine if they're being lawfully detained, or, in this case, just to find out where they are.
And for 3 agonizing years after Shakereh disappeared, Shradhananda somehow managed to evade the authorities, evade the family's frantic questions.
And all the while, he was living it up, lavishly, in Bangalore, just casually telling people his wife was on a, quote, perpetual holiday.
Perpetual holiday for 3 years. Unbelievable.
The shocking discovery finally came in May 1994. It was after what the reports call a carefully planned sting operation by the Karnataka police. They uncovered Shakereh's skeletal remains, buried deep in the courtyard of her own house.
In her own yard. The sheer audacity, it's staggering.
Completely staggering.
And the details that came out about her death, they're just gruesome. She'd been killed way back on April 28, 1991. She was only 43.
So young.
And the investigation revealed she'd been drugged first, then placed on a mattress, which was then put into this coffin-like box.
Which was already waiting in a pit dug meticulously in her own courtyard, prepared in advance.
Oh my God.
And this came out during the recovery, which is the most chilling part. When they recovered her remains and they carefully removed the mattress, they found one of her hands was clutching the mattress below her.
Yeah.
That, along with other forensic evidence, it strongly supported this horrifying idea that she was actually still alive. Conscious, maybe, when she was buried.
Buried alive.
It seems entirely possible, even likely. Her murder just, understandably, sent shockwaves across the entire country. It was immediately called one of the most heinous crimes in Indian criminal history. It deeply affected the nation's psyche.
Just unbelievable cruelty. Okay, so moving to the justice part of this. Swami Shradhananda. He was taken into judicial custody pretty quickly after admitting to the crime.
Yes, he admitted it. And this case, it turned into a really pivotal moment for the India judicial system. It's quite fascinating from a legal perspective.
How so?
Well, a key thing here is that it was the very first case in India where the exhumation process, digging up the body, was recorded on video.
Oh, yeah.
And beyond that, it was also the first time that DNA tests and those videotapes of the exhumation were accepted as actual evidence in an Indian court.
That's huge, right? For legal precedent.
Absolutely massive. It wasn't just like a small procedural change. It fundamentally broadened the tools available to law enforcement, made it harder for criminals to, hide behind a lack of traditional physical evidence. You could argue it set a really powerful template for how forensic science could sort of redefine justice in India.
Right. So the trial for this deeply disturbing case, it started in late 1997, and then May 21st, 2005, the verdict came down from the civil and sessions judge, V.S. Totad. He sentenced Shradhananda to capital punishment by hanging.
Yeah, a very clear, very strong statement from the court. And the judge's order really laid out the severity, the premeditation involved. He actually said, and this is a quote, "From the facts and circumstances of the case, it is clear that the said murder has created such a fear in the minds of the family and in the community to live peacefully in society." He went on, "There are no mitigating circumstances or factors to award a lesser punishment," and concluded that, having regard to the nature of the methodology in committing the murder for gain, it is a fit case for capital punishment.
Wow, murder for gain. He directly called out the motive.
Explicitly.
Then the death sentence was confirmed, wasn't it? September 12, 2005, by the High Court. A 2-judge bench called it the rarest of rare cases. They said the accused had murdered his wife in a diabolical and a well-planned scheme.
They felt anything less than death wouldn't be appropriate, basically. That it would be unwarranted tolerance for such a horrific crime.
That phrase, rarest of rare, it really signifies something, doesn't it? How often is a crime actually put in that category?
It's reserved for crimes that are just exceptionally brutal, things that shock the conscience of the entire community, often involving extreme depravity. In this case, well, it certainly seemed to fit that description for the High Court. But of course, there was an appeal. Notice was lodged back in July 2005, even before the High Court confirmation. And then in February 2006, the Supreme Court stayed the High Court judgment.
Meaning they put it on hold.
Exactly, signaling that the nation's highest court was going to review the entire decision.
And that legal journey, it finally came to an end on July 22, 2008. The Indian Supreme Court ordered a life sentence for Shradhananda. They commuted the death penalty.
That was the final step, the end of a very long, very arduous legal process.
But the story itself, its impact, it continues, right?
Oh, absolutely. It continues to resonate in the public consciousness.
Right.
I mean, the case has been immortalized in popular culture. Most recently, there was that 2023 Amazon Prime video documentary series, Dancing on the Grave. 4 parts.
Right, I heard about that.
It's quite striking, isn't it? How these stories, especially ones with such deep human drama and, well, significant legal aspects, they just keep capturing our attention. Decades later, they remind us of the lasting questions these tragedies provoke.
So as we kind of wrap up here and reflect on Shakereh Khaleeli's story, what does it all mean for us? What do we take away? It feels like a chilling, just profoundly unsettling reminder of how trust, especially that deep trust within intimate relationships, can be so devastatingly betrayed, and how the insidious pursuit of wealth, of gain, can, in these extreme cases, lead to just unfathomable darkness.
I think that's right. And it prompts us to think about those key takeaways, doesn't it? You know, Shakereh's extraordinary background, the privileges she had that ultimately couldn't protect her.
Yeah.
The truly shocking nature of that second marriage, defying everything and ending so catastrophically. The horrific, deeply personal, brutal manner of her death.
And the legal side, too, those groundbreaking precedents set by her case. The video, the DNA evidence in India.
Exactly. It just really highlights the vulnerability, doesn't it? That even people with immense privilege, immense standing, can face.
It really does. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. What does that long, winding path of justice in this case, from a death sentence confirmed, then commuted to life imprisonment, what does that tell us about the complexities of seeking retribution for crimes that are truly heinous? Maybe more personally, what does Shakereh's tragic deep dive into betrayal prompt you to reflect on about the nature of trust and maybe greed in your own world?